New York City ahead of the 2025 NBA Draft tipping off tomorrow night at the Barclays Center. I'm John Fanta. He is Jay Bilas. He is Bobby Marks. They're from ESPN. You'll see them on draft coverage all throughout the coming days and nights. Guys, here we are. There's so much buzz about this draft. If you were a headline writer, Jay Bilas, how would you sum up what we're heading into this week?
You know, John, the initial thought is it's the Cooper Flagg draft because he's the number one pick, but there are so many other really talented players in this draft. And over the years, you tend to think you know, and then you look back 5 years later and go, why wasn't the guy taking number 11, number one? And that may not, probably not the case this year, but I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was drafted 11th. So we may believe, but we don't know, and that's the beauty of it.
Jalen Williams was drafted 12th a couple of years ago from the NBA champion Oklahoma City Thunder. Bobby, how would you sum up what you're zoning in on heading into this week?
I think for me it's the Mount, I call it the Mount Verde Four. When you look at Cooper Flagg, Liam McNeeley, Derik Queen, and Asa Newell, the potential to have four players. Jay teases me about this. We talked about this in our production meeting last night, and I said potentially the greatest high school team of all time. And Jay's like, that's not a high school.
High school is where everybody grew up in the same neighborhood and went to each other's birthday parties and played Little League. That's not a high school.
But I do think that is for me at least, it's a really intriguing storyline here. Just because I had the ability to sit down with each player leading up to this draft process, and they are certainly all unique. They all have a different personality. I remember when I sat down with Asa, and I think we'll probably talk about it. It's like, you know, his parents sold their business in Georgia. They basically gave up everything to move to Orlando with him. I learned something neat that he likes to make protein ice cream, which was pretty interesting. I didn't know that protein ice cream existed. So I do think. Listen, there's a lot of great storylines, but for me, it's the four players that should at least go drafted in the first round.
We are taking your questions, so if you have a question, just raise your hand, and our Lindsay will bring the microphone over to you. Do we have any questions out of the gates for our panel? I see one right here, second row. Get the microphone to you. Just state your name and your media affiliation.
Hey, Ben Couch, NBA.com. You know, Jay, you joked about it not being a high school there. You know, in the new era with the NIL and everything taking over, you know, have you experienced any changes in the way you're evaluating prospects or how they project forward into the NBA?
I have not. I mean, Montverde is no different than Oak Hill or places like that where players have been going for years. So it's not a new phenomenon. NIL is a part of our landscape now. So that's changed recruiting. I don't think it's changed evaluation at all. Players are the same. You know, you're looking for the same things. The NBA is looking for the same things. So while the landscape may change, I don't think the fundamentals of it change very much.
Got one right here in the third row. We actually have two questions. We'll start in the middle and head over to the end. Microphone around. And that Montverde team, unbelievable.
They would have been an NCAA tournament team, maybe an Elite Eight team.
Hello, Holden Sherman, SB Nation. This question is especially for Bobby. You've seen how the Thunder, you've seen how the Pacers have built out their teams that were very cognizant of the new CBA rules.
Yep.
How do you think that's going to impact how teams are going to draft, not just this year, but going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly sustainability. I think that's probably the word that gets thrown around a lot. Certainly how you structure contracts make a big difference as far as how you build that roster. You know, of course, the big thing will be with Oklahoma City. Eventually, their three main players with Shai and Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren all three are extension eligible, and that will be the big storyline. How can you afford paying them and keep this roster together? And when you have 15 and 24 this year in this year's draft, and the potential to have 4 first-round picks next year, and you have 22nd rounders, you can go about doing that here. I think you get in a little bit of more trouble when maybe you're a little bit more top-heavy in salary and you don't have those draft picks. But I always say that the importance of, if you get the draft right, you're not just having that player on a rookie contract for 4 years. The likelihood is that he'll sign an extension with you, and you can have him here for 9 years, potentially 10 years. And that's the benefit here. We see it in Indiana this year. Benedict Mathurin, who was a first-round pick, and what he was able to do in the playoffs and certainly had a good finals here, is on a rookie contract. You mentioned you have to figure out how to pay him, but when you can have players like that, it makes it a lot easier to kind of build around the rest of your roster.
Thank you.
Let's go to Joe here on the end.
Joe Rudin with the Hartford Current. Jay, I asked you a similar question last week on the call, but for Bobby or John, go back to that Montverde 4, with Liam McNeeley, the role he played there was obviously a lot different than the role he played at UConn. How might that benefit him going into the NBA, what he might be asked to do, and how do you see him fitting in the league?
You know, when I was watching some of Liam's, and I saw him a bit this year during the college season, there's one stat that stood out, was he had, I think 17 points or more on the road. Like, there was like a number that really, like, the ability to play on the road and play in different, whether a neutral or away games, the ability to kind of deal with adversity. I think that's the big thing with Liam for me, is that, you know, you go from playing at UConn for a very demanding coach and Danny Hurley. This will be a different, and certainly Kevin Boyle at Montverde was a very demanding coach. This might be a little bit more different, but I do think he's been kind of baptism by fire, what he's had to go through the last couple of years.
And he has best games against top 25 teams. When the lights were on, he performed.
And when the lights were off behind the scenes, this is a kid who every time Connecticut is wrapping up a shoot-around or getting through a workout, on one end of the court this past November and December was Alex Caravan. That's no surprise, as you well know. On the other end of the court was Liam McNeeley. Just a tireless worker, and the way that he conducts himself is a pro. That's who this kid is. That's who this young man will be.
Well, that goes back to the question about Montverde. I mean, they were trained that way, and you see that with a lot of international players. They're trained to be pros with their work ethic, and it's not the work they put, it's the extra work, and they're all willing to do that, and that's a separating factor, or at least it can be.
Let's go a row back. See you right there, then we'll head up front.
Robert O'Connell, Wall Street Journal. This is for Jay. You just mentioned it, the sort of international track record of NBA success. There's been a lot of chatter lately, the distinction between the international model of training players and the American model, AAU, high school, and maybe a year in college. What do you make of that distinction? What do you think the maybe benefits are of the international model in recent years? And kind of a quick follow-up to there, where do you place Cooper in the lineage of recent top American prospects, going back to the 80s and Zion?
I may look at the discussion of American versus international basketball a little bit differently than some. I think it's a little bit arrogant of us as Americans to think that we're going to have the best players in the world all the time. After the original Dream Team in 1992, there was an explosion of popularity in the game worldwide. And I'm not sure exactly what the number is, 25, close to 30% of the NBA rosters are international players. I think the United States still produces more of the best players than anywhere in the world. But the idea that the United States will produce all of them is kind of ridiculous when you really think of it. Basketball is the second most popular sport in the world behind soccer or football, it's called everywhere but here. So, we have to expect that talent is going to emerge worldwide as well. There are, I think, some issues that the development programs in the United States have. We don't have club teams that are professional the way they have in most European countries that have essentially junior feeder teams that they're signed to professional contracts. We do it through the college system. AAU may not be ideal, but we still have a lot of the best coaches in the world. Our high school coaches are great. There are some issues, but we're still producing, the United States is still producing more of the best players than anywhere in the world. And to your question about Cooper Flagg, I happen to think he's the best freshman player that Duke's ever had. That might not mean he's the most talented. Grant Hill and Kyrie Irving were incredibly talented players when they came out of came out of Duke. Grant came out as a senior, and Kyrie left after his freshman year after being injured for most of the season. But no other freshman produced as an 18-year-old the way Cooper Flagg did across the board, not only in success of the team, but in individual success. As an 18-year-old, to be as complete a player as he is right now, and as competitive as he is as an 8-year-old or an 18-year-old, is really hard to fathom. When you think back to what you were like as an 18-year-old, or what he accomplished at 18 is really staggering, and I think it shows the trajectory he has as a pro.